ROi Africa analysed one of the biggest newsmakers of 2015, the story of Cecil the Lion. The story gained huge news exposure across 100 countries across the globe. The story extended across 100 countries and it beat very big international stories like the Greek financial crisis, like the migrant crisis, and Donald Trump on certain days. This particular story comes out of Zimbabwe, and what I found unusual as a media monitor is that it wasn't a South African-based story, yet South Africa stood up and took ownership of this story. We've seen in South African news media over a 31-day period that Cecil the Lion has dominated by 45% across the news platforms in our country. That's against other big stories like the Springboks, 13.34%, Eskom, 10.78%, and Thuli Madonsela coming in at only 3.79%. That's less than 10% of Cecil the Lion's coverage. So less than 10% for an animal that we don't even own. It's also sparked huge debate about trophy hunting and about wildlife protection in our country. It's one of the few social media reactions that has made the world stand up and listen. We then measured the social media impact here at home, and Cecil the Lion comes in at just under 30% of our conversation in the past month, against, again, big stories like the Springboks only coming in at 2% against Cecil the Lion, Thuli Madonsela 0.77%. What I find fascinating is the impact that Cecil the Lion's hashtag had on the world at large. We saw Cecil the Lion's face up on Times Square, on the Empire State Building. It shut down trophy hunting in certain areas. Legislation is being changed in Zimbabwe. So for the first time in a long time, we've seen the hashtag actually resulting in some action. We often see what's called slacktivism. By carrying a hashtag, you believe that you've done something good with the world, and actually you had no impact. But this particular hashtag certainly made a difference. South Africans celebrated Women's Day this month, just a couple of days back, and the world is celebrating Women's Month. And it's with that we've seen often that brands have piggybacked on the hashtag for certain events, like for Women's Month. One of those brands is BIC, the pen providers. They released an ad a couple of days ago that had a pretty lady on the cover, and the ad said, "Look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, work like the boss." And that caused social media outcry. What was meant to be a compliment to women turned completely on the reverse, and BIC fell under attack hugely by social media. Not just here at home, but across the world. We've seen statistics where Women's Day as a whole accounts for 97% of the press, but BIC accounts for 3 in every 100 articles that relate to Women's Day. So they certainly made an impact on the Women's Day hashtag, or Women's Month hashtag, but it wasn't the right impact. We had a look at where in the world the story ended up. South Africa was the biggest carrier of this media. 33% of the attacks on BIC came from South African social media. United States coming in second at 21.36%, and then the UK 16.5%. Interestingly, country number 4 on the list is Nigeria, and then we're followed by Australia and Ireland. What is interesting as well is the level of heat being focused on BIC. The system we have generates heat maps where you can see the stronger the glow of red, the more intense that particular story is generated in that country. And South Africa, Australia, USA and the UK glow red on that heat map. It just goes to show you really should consider your audience when you are putting out what is maybe just an arbitrary campaign that ties to a special event. Really consider who you're targeting, and if it's a Women's Day, probably the last thing you want to say is think like a man.